Hi all, this is Karthik from Design School for WordPress Beginners, the place where I teach you how to design, build and customize your website. If you're new here, well, let me tell you, you won't be new anymore if you subscribe. Let's get into the video. This video is a part of playlist called Elementor Basics, in which we discuss about every widget, every feature and all things Elementor. And today we're going to discuss about the Blockquote widget. So we'll start with the basics of the Blockquote widget, and it has few themes that you can apply. So this is the boxed theme, and this is the quotation skin, and this is the border skin. Well, that's all, and you can of course adjust the text style and stuff like that. But I'll also teach you how to change a boring block code from this to something like this, all by using CSS and the Elementor Blockquote widget. And not just this, you can basically take any code on the internet, mostly from CodePen, and port it to Elementor Blockquote widget. Without any further ado, let's see what we can do with the Blockquote widget. To start with, you have 4 skins to pick from. So you can pick the border one, so that will align the content onto the left and it will give that neat border. You can also pick the quotation one. You can also pick the boxed one, that will just basically give a solid background. Of course, you can adjust these in style settings. And finally, my personal favorite is this clean, and you're going to use this a lot because I'm going to show you why in a bit. And here you can align the text based on your requirement. So you can align it onto the left, which is the default, and you can align the text onto the center. Not just the text, the author and the tweet button as well. So whatever you add just below the text also gets aligned onto the direction that you specify here. They don't have a justified one here. I don't know why. Maybe they just wanted to align all these 3 in the same way. You can type in your text content, so maybe you can say, so you can type any text. But what's really cool with this block quote content area, not just the block quote, you can also use HTML tags in any content area. So you can simply put this in HTML tags. So you can make this a heading 1 just like that. When you wrap this in H1, it becomes a heading 1. So from normal text, you just converted this piece of text to a heading. You can also change is to any heading, and of course you can also style this inline. So you can type something like color red, so font size, color. You can do a lot more with the content area. If you have the pro version, instead of typing any text, you can also link them to dynamic fields. So you can link it to maybe post date. So I just clicked on post date and that appears over there. You can also link it to any dynamic field found under this. So you can link it to post ID, post time, post title, page title, whatever, short code. So you can do a lot of stuff with the dynamic linking, and the same applies to author as well. So you can type in any name. It's usually 1 or 2 words. So you just say by your name. That's how you type it. You can also link it to dynamic fields. All the same dynamic fields that you see under content area, you also see them here. So you can link them to any field. Of course, you can also have an ACF field. So you can define any content field on the backend and then link this field to that data. So when the user enters that data, it's reflected in here. We'll talk more about ACF in future versions, but for now, you can just remember that this can be linked to many dynamic options. Finally, you also have a tweet button. Let me type some code here. So based on the skin that you choose, your data, all this content will be displayed in a proper format. So if you choose border, the tweet button will be on to the extreme right, and it will be a regular quote with a gray border. Of course, you can customize this. If you took quotation, there will be just a quotes icon on the background. You can also make it boxed, so that will be just a solid background. You can change it to clean, which is my personal favorite. Again, this is a personal preference. And once you pick the icon, you can change the type of icon. So you can maybe change the button to just an icon or just the text or both. So it will have both. Again, here you have an option to choose the type of the skin. Click to tweet. You can change the label to click to tweet. So, or you can change it to share. So I can say share this, and you can enter your username from which you want this to be shared. And finally, you can customize the target URL. If you want the user or the code to be shared from the same page, just enter the current URL, or if you want any other URL, just type custom and put in your URL, or just link it to any dynamic option. Again, you can define any dynamic fields on the backend. So once you enter the content that you want, it can be plain simple text or HTML tags and stuff like that. You can customize various settings here. So you can change the text color, maybe pick a different one here. You can also choose font family, font size and all the typography settings. that you have with every other text widget. And you can also adjust the gap between the content and the author name, and again you can customize the color of the author name and also the typography for the author name, and you can also adjust the space between the author name and the tweet button. So you can put it as much as you want, and you're not limited to the maximum amount here. If you want even more, just type in and that will be applied. So it's generally in pixels, they don't show it here, but it's still applicable. So it still works, but they don't want you to do this because they think it's weird, which it is. So you can enter any URL and you can customize it per device. So for desktop you can have a different gap, and for mobile and tablet you can have a different gap. I'll just limit this to 20 and this to 20 as well. So that looks kind of neat. And you can also customize the look of your button, starting with the size. Let's enter 10. And they don't want you to do this. Even if you click on the up arrow, nothing happens. You need to manually enter it because they think it's weird. But if you want a weird looking tweet box, well, you can increase the size of the button to this, so it looks kind of weird. You need to highlight the content rather than highlighting the link, which is why Elementor limited this to 10, I guess. They limited it to 2. So it's all up to you. You can enter any number in the box. You're not limited to the slider. Again, the same thing applies to the border radius. You don't see anything because there's no background for this button. If you change this to boxed, and if you change the icon to classic, and once you customize the border radius, you can see that in action. So see that. And color, you can change the color of the button. Here you have an option to pick the background color of the box, which is this gray area. So maybe pick or anything that you want. So that's all you have in the Blockquote widget, but you're not limited to that. If you understand the anatomy or the way in which the Blockquote widget is built in HTML, you can basically apply any style from the internet to your Blockquote widget. Let me show you that with 3 practical examples, and you can apply it to any style or port any code that you found on CodePen to Elementor Blockquote widget. And before you take any code from CodePen and port it to the Blockquote widget, you better clear or reset the style of this and pick clean from here. Why? Well, that's the reason why I told you you'll be using this a lot. If you pick clean, there'll be no styling applied by Elementor, and then you'll be free to apply your own style. Also, you can remove the author name and also the tweet button, since most of it is provided by the code itself. I'll show you that in a minute, but this is how you do it. Just reset the style, pick the clean skin, and you can also erase the content. Of course, we'll be adding content there. So let's get into it and see how we can customize our Elementor Blockquote widget to something like this. Let's examine the HTML structure of the Blockquote widget. So I minimize the side panel, just right click, inspect. We'll see what Blockquote widget is actually made up of. And for those of you who don't know, Blockquote is actually an HTML element. So whatever is wrapped in these tags is actually an HTML element. Blockquote widget is basically made up of this container. So there's a container, and then within that you have your Blockquote widget, and if you enter any text, it will be wrapped in paragraph. And if you have the author name and the link to the tweet button, they'll be in something called footer. So this is all Blockquote is made up of. So we just need to remember these. So it's Elementor widget container, so that contains the whole Blockquote thing, and Blockquote class is Elementor Blockquote. Of course, you can use the tag to target Blockquote as well. So instead of .Elementor Blockquote, you can simply say Blockquote, and that will target this element. Of course, you need to add selector before that, and whatever elements are the children of Blockquote, well, you need to say selector space Blockquote space that particular element. If you want to target this, you space selector space Blockquote space P. Just type CSS Blockquote styles in Google and you'll find a lot of styles. Of course, if you find them on CodePen, well, you can search CodePens as well. Basically, these are all codes that are hosted on CodePen. So I'll show you how to achieve few styles, and then you can take any code from CodePen and port it to the Blockquote widget. So first we'll take a look at this, and also don't worry, I'll leave a link to this article in the description so you can check all the styles and try out all of them. Some of them are complex. So the first style that I want to achieve is the one that you saw in the demo earlier, which is this one. So we need to convert our standard Blockquote into this one. To do that, we need to examine the HTML structure of the code provided here. So there's a class called Blockquote wrapper, and then there's a class called Blockquote within which they had everything else. So in our Elementor, it's Elementor widget container class, and within that we have our block quote, and within that there is a paragraph. Of course, like I told you earlier, you can put all the HTML tags within the content area of the block quote. So essentially you can put all this into the content area of our Elementor widget. So I'll just copy this, I'll go to my blockquote widget, and one more thing, I'll disable all the buttons and the author name because we're already getting it from the code here. So that's one more step that you need to take, or you can pinpoint this particular author name and you can apply CSS styles that we applied to these elements to author name. But it's easier to clear all this and just have content. Of course, even content we are adding it from here. So I'll just take the HTML from here, as this is all inside block quote and this is our block quote widget. Let's change this to clean and I'll paste it. Right now I have h1, and you can see based on the styles defined in my theme, my h1 and my h4 and others are already styled, and we kind of have that design. We need to add a little bit of CSS to target all these elements, and as you can see here, this is called inline styling. So you can change properties of the tags just by entering any properties here. So it's property colon value, and again you need to enter semicolon, and then you need to enter another property colon value. So that's how inline styling works. I recommend you not do this because inline styling adds a lot of code on the same line and it's a bad design pattern. However, you can do it. So by adding the HTML mentioned here, we basically converted our block quote widget to have the same HTML structure as this. So instead of block quote wrapper, we have Elementor widget container in our Elementor, and instead of block quote class, we have .Elementor block quote class for our Elementor, and this is the same since we copied the content and pasted it into the content area. So it's the same design now. You can simply port the CSS, but then replace these classes with the appropriate Elementor classes and the code will just work. So what am I talking about? So we need to replace anything with block quote wrapper, block quote, and everything else with Elementor specifics. So I'll just copy every CSS code from here till the end. I'll just open my Atom text editor. You can do it manually, but doing it with text editor is quite easy. I'll just paste the CSS code. Instead of block quote wrapper, we need to have selector space Elementor widget container, because we saw that, right? Block quote is within selector space dot Elementor widget container. We examined that by inspecting the element earlier. So it's this Elementor widget container. We'll just replace this. So this is done, and we just need to replace dot block quote with selector space dot Elementor block quote, which is targeting it by the class name, or selector space block quote, which is targeting the element with the tag name or the tag HTML tag. We'll just do Elementor block quote since we got used to this. So it's Elementor block quote, right? I'll replace all the instances. I'll copy and I'll paste that into custom CSS of this particular widget. We kind of have it, but we don't see the other text. What happened? Like, did I do anything wrong? No, it's because they have a black background or a tinge of black. That's the reason why we are unable to see our Elementor widget container. So here you can add this black background simply to the block quote wrapper equivalent of Elementor. So I'll just copy this background so that you can actually see the white text hiding within. So within this widget container itself, I'll just add a background value so that we can see it properly. Now you see that everything looks great, and you can tweak the content, and this will be changed based on this. So you can change here. We can change the text here. So whichever is plain text, just replace that with any text. These are HTML tags. You can tweak with them if you want. And this is current knowledge. Again, this is a different text. You can replace that with anything you want. But we have an issue here. everything is properly set. So we properly converted the block code to this. But what about this element? What happened to this? Well, what exactly is this? We'll right click and inspect what that element is so that we can fix it. Most of it should work. I don't know why it doesn't work. So it's actually a pseudo element. It's h1b4. So there's some problem with that and we need to fix that. So let's go into CSS and try tweaking values and see if it's fixed. So it's h1.after. I'll try to tweak these values. So I need to move this a bit onto the top so that it merges with the outline pattern that we have here. So I'll just say minus 60 pixels and it perfectly works. You can just do this by trial and error. Since I already know what this is, it's a pseudo element. I just tweak the value. Again, if you change the value to something else, that will go out of order. So minus 60 should align that perfectly with this, and this is great on desktop and tablet as well, but on mobile you need to fix the values, right? Then what is the value containing the height of this? As you can see here, this whole thing is this Elementor widget container, and here they've specified a height of 100 VH. So maybe you can have 80 VH. I think that would be more than enough. 80 VH, and I think that will look great on mobile as well. If it doesn't, again change this. You can also have custom breakpoints and change this value for mobile devices. So for 360 pixels and below, you can put different value, maybe something like 30, and that will work really great. And it's messing up with other designs. You can simply enter a normal value instead of having this. So you can have 300 pixels or 700 pixels. So on mobile, 700 pixels, fixed it for me. You can have a custom breakpoint and fix it for mobile, but we'll keep it to 80 VH on desktop and tablet. And if you want to learn custom breakpoints tutorial, make sure you check out the channel. I already taught that. So we just ported the first code, so it looks perfectly like this design, and you can customize the text from the content area without disturbing the tags. You can add as many tags as you want, and you can also style them here. So changing the look of your blockquote widget is that easy if you understand what that widget is made up of. Again, it's made up of Elementor widget container within which we have our blockquote, and within that we added HTML content manually so that we can target that, and that's what we did here. So when we replaced blockquote with selector space dot Elementor blockquote, the h1 that is resting inside the content area is also targeted by the CSS. So all this is applied, and you can change these to any values that you want. Just like that, we ported this code. Now let's see and port another code. I have this design that you see on the screen. So it's really neat, and you can add a gradient background to Elementor widget container. Here they have added a gradient background to body since it's a demo. Again, you need to realistically analyze what is different from the code pen and the actual Elementor widget. Well, I can clearly see that they added gradient background to the body, and we can do the same with Elementor widget container, and you can see the HTML structure is exactly the way it was for our blockquote widget. It's Elementor widget container, then we had blockquote, then we have content area. We'll just put this HTML there so that we can simply copy and paste these properties, and it will just work out of the box. So I'll just remove the CSS from here. It's kind of messed up, don't worry. We'll remove the content from here. We'll put our new content. You can change the content, of course, just put it. I like this code, start before you're ready. And here I'll say Iron Man. And now we need to take all the code from here, starting from this. I'll copy, paste it into my text editor, which is Atom. So I just need to replace blockquote wrapper with, can anybody guess here? It's not Elementor blockquote, it's a wrapper. So wrapper corresponds or is equivalent to our Elementor widget container. So how do I know it? well, we really examined the structure, right? So it's the wrapper, within that we have block quote, and within that we have all the content. So we'll do the same. I'll just replace wrapper with selector Elementor widget container. You can also copy the class names by inspecting the element, and I can simply copy block quote or dot block quote with selector space dot Elementor block quote. So you can also put block quote here. Dot is not required for tag names. For class names, dot is required. So we'll do this here. We'll copy the whole thing, go to our Blockquote widget and a custom CSS, paste, and something went wrong. What happened? Well, again, it's the problem with the background. Let's add a gradient background. So it's this one. I also taught gradient backgrounds, if you remember. Well, we'll paste this code, but not into our body because it'll apply it to the whole page. We just want it within the widget container. So I'll put this code under widget container. And now you see it. Since it's white, it was invisible. Now you see it. It's a beautiful block code simply by understanding and porting the code from this one. You can change the values or add as many tags as you want. Again, remember to change the skin to clean and delete the author name and disable the tweet button. If you want, just keep it and apply the same styles, but you need to get the class name of the tweet button and then paste the CSS of any of these elements so that it's positioned that way. But if you want a really clean block code, simply port the code. Simply just add the content from the HTML here itself and then remove the author name and disable the tweet button, and you can see it, a beautiful block code. So we just achieved two designs without even writing a single piece of code, simply by understanding what Elementor Blockquote widget is made up of. And you can do this for any style that you find on CodePen. But I'll just do this one more time, and if you see something else other than HTML, you need to click view compiled HTML, and if it's something else then pure CSS, you just need to click on this and click on view compiled CSS. So that's one thing to notice when you're porting code from CodePen to Elementor custom CSS area. So here I have another style. As you can see here, when you hover over it, there's a neat decoration around and the author name pops in even from this. So you can pick any of this. I'll just show you with this. You can do this for the rest, and you can port any blockquote code to the blockquote widget of Elementor. And again, by carefully examining what it's made up of, as we have 4 block quotes here, they're most likely to have 4 elements. So you can see that here. So here they have 4 section elements. So each section in our case corresponds to, can you guess it? Yes, it's the block quote. So each section corresponds to our block quote. So we'll add the HTML. And how do I know which is the HTML to add? Well, anything within a container is the HTML that we need to add within our block quote content, because that's how the structure is built, right? So I'll copy from h1 till the h2. So we have one h1 tag and another h2 tag. Don't have to even understand that, just simply paste it, and our previous style works perfectly fine. But we're looking to style it using this. So we need to examine, or we need to port all the CSS that corresponds to this particular section. So starting with anything that has effect, effect A, effect heading, effect subheading, h1 tag or h2 tag, we need to copy that entire CSS. Again, this is pure HTML, so I don't have to click on view compiled HTML. This is SCSS, so I need to click on view compiled CSS. I already clicked on that, already have CSS for it. So starting with effect, right? So starting with effect, effect A, effect heading and subheading, we need to copy everything. So I'll just click from here, effect heading, effect subheading, effect A is there here as well, effect A is there here as well. Till here we need to copy that. Again, we'll go to our Atom text editor where we do the magical stuff. So we thought that this section corresponds to our block code. Let's see if it works. If it doesn't, we'll replace this with our container, which is Elementor widget container. We'll see if it works with the block code class. It's just trial and error, folks. You don't have to stress much about it. Just click on this, go to my Atom text editor. We'll replace effect with selector space block quote. And remember, effect A should be replaced with selector space block quote. So it's better to replace effect A, so that won't affect our, and it's also better to replace each one individually since effect is included in each and every line. So I'll carefully find the first effect. Okay, replace that. Second effect, replace that. Effect A, I'll replace that. I'll replace that. That. And there's no more effect A. We just replaced it with selector space block quote, or you can also replace it with selector space dot Elementor block quote. Now let's go ahead and replace effect. It's Command F on Mac and Control F on PC. So there's only one, so you can simply click replace. And you don't have to replace effect heading because we copied the same HTML that we had. So we have the same classes as they have here. So you don't have to copy or replace effect subheading or heading with anything else. It's included in the content area. We have the same content area. So I'll copy the whole thing, Control C. If it doesn't work, we'll do something else. So I need to remove this. It seems to work. Well, that's it. We just ported this code, the first effect. As you can see here, when you hover over it, the author name pops in and there is a neat little animation effect. You can do the same for effect B as well. So in effect B, you need to copy everything that has effect B, effect heading and effect subheading, and also the content within. Of course, you can change the content simply by editing that in Elementor. And there's one more thing to note, as this is a hover effect, it's not available on mobile devices. So it's up to you. On mobile, you need to just have it underlined or something of that sort, so you won't get on hover animations, or maybe you can use JavaScript to animate this. That's it. So you can take virtually any code and understand what it is and port it to Elementor Blockquote Widget, so you get amazing block quotes such as this one, or this one. That's it for now. I'll talk to you in the next video. Keep trying new block quote styles. I'll talk to you in the next video. Again, I'll leave a link to all the code that I showed in this video. It's up to you to replace it with the proper class like I showed in this video. If you have any doubts, let me know.